Let's take a look and see how you did. Well, technically, a little bit harder, but you can do it. So you would do y minus whatever the y value is, and anything up here that's a y value, well, that's 4 equals, well, parallel means same slope, so negative 1/3 x minus whatever the x value is, which is 4. Well, you could stop there if that's all we wanted, but we're going to go for slope-intercept form here. And so we would distribute the negative 1/3 first. I know this is a little low. Sorry about that. So you take negative 1/3 times x. Well, that's not too hard. That's negative 1/3 x. But when it gets a little harder is when you take negative 1/3 times negative 4. Well, it's a negative times a negative, which in the end means positive. And then, well, what is 1/3 times 4? You could write it as 4/3, or it's otherwise known as 1 1/3. So now you have to look ahead. That's what I would do. What do I want to write there? Do I want to write 4/3 or 1 1/3? I'm looking over here. I know I'm going to add 4 next, right? Which is easier to add 4 to? 4/3 or 1 1/3? 1 1/3 is way easier to add 4 to, correct? So now all you have to do is add 4 here, add 4 there, and we get y equals negative 1/3 x plus what then? I said it was easier. 5 1/3, yep. That's how I would write it. And if you want to see what it would look like, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 1/3, right about there. Well, I actually hit the point when you do it, but you ever take something like that? Does that make sense for a negative slope, how those are going? That tilt right there, does that seem negative? Yeah, it's believable. So, any questions so far on point slope formula? If you're asked for an equation, go there. Okay. Whoop, one too many there. Now you may notice that I did not give you the graph on yours. That's because you don't have to graph them, but some people like to. It says write the equation in, oh, it says slope-intercept form now. It has to go through those 2 points. Again, complete your checklist. We need a point and the slope. Do we have a point? Check. Do we have the slope? Not so much. And so, again, the reason I didn't give you the graph, and you could always do it, the reason I didn't do that is to really force you to use all your tools. So if we go x1, y1, x2, y2, it would be, well, negative 1 minus 6 over 3 minus a negative 4. Basically, all I did was went like that. My top is negative 7. My bottom is 7. So what is the slope of the line for 3a? Negative 1. Now, isn't slope supposed to be a fraction now? Yeah, you could write it over 1 if you felt like, but is it okay in this case just to leave it as negative 1? Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. So now we have the slope check. Which point do you want to use? 3 negative 1 is an excellent choice because the numbers are smaller. That's the only reason that matters. So here we go. Y minus, well, what's the y value of what we chose? It's negative 1. Slope is negative 1. And x minus 3. Any questions so far? What would be a good next step? Yeah, distribute the slope. Negative x. Careful. I distributed the negative 1 to there. Plus 3. Very good. So, as written, correct or incorrect? Incorrect because, yeah, the 1. So subtract 1. So y equals negative x plus 2. And I'm just going to prove it to you. This equation right down here, y equals negative x plus 2, if you had to graph it, it would have a slope of negative 1 and a y-intercept of, I just connected those 2 points. What do you think? Y-intercept of 2, does that look like a negative slope? Most definitely it does. Okay. Now, did you have to graph? Was that part of the directions? No. But sometimes it really doesn't hurt to check. Everybody done? I'm going to get you started on the next one. Here's the one that's perpendicular. The last equation was that. I need to make one perpendicular to that through that point. So as far as point slope formula is concerned, point, check. Got it. Slope, not quite yet. But what is the slope right here? It is -1. How do you make a slope perpendicular to that? Opposite reciprocal. Now really this is -1/1, so let's flip that over and change the sign. So in other words, the slope is 1. So there you go. Use 1 and 2,7 to write this equation, and go now. Here we go. I did see the correct answer out there quite a bit. So you do y minus whatever the y value is in the problem we're trying to do, which is 7. So what do you think? A slope of 1, is that nice or not so nice when doing the work? That's pretty nice, because when you distribute 1, really doesn't do a whole lot. 1 times x is x, 1 times -2 is -2. And so of course we add 7, and the answer I saw on most pages, x plus 5. And once everybody gets that written down, I'll go back to that last graph and show you that it is perpendicular and goes through 2,7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, slope of 1. Look perpendicular. Yep. Now the reason when they specify a point, it's important to get the right point, is that red line could be moved a lot of different places and still be perpendicular to that blue line. But this is the only red line that actually goes through 2,7 as well. And as you can see, it does actually go through 2,7. Okay. Okay, these two specials. The formula still works. It's just way quicker if you don't have to use the formula. So this one just says parallel to the x-axis and goes through -4, -2. Parallel to the x-axis would be that one, correct? So I'm going to prove to you that the formula still works, but I hope you don't ever necessarily use it for this type. I hope you just know how to finish these. So what is the slope of that particular line right there? It's a horizontal line, so the slope is 0. Remember, the sun comes up over the horizon. So it's y minus a -2, it's right there, equals 0 times x minus a -4. Right? That's really what it's saying. And so this turns into a plus, that turns into a plus. But 0 times anything is 0. So it's y plus 2 equals 0. Subtract 2, y equals -2. Now it's way easier to remember that any horizontal line that's strictly horizontal is y equals a number, whatever number it's at. Why is that so confusing? Because which axis goes horizontal? The x-axis, which is why it's hard to remember. It's y equals a number. But do you agree every single point on this line has -2 for a y value? Okay, and that's how I remember it. Okay. So that's how the formula will work. But I really hope you don't use it. Just remember, y equals a number. And it's whatever your y value happens to be, -2. This one is a little bit more complicated, why it still works. I will show it to you, but once again, hopefully I don't ever have to use it. So perpendicular to the x-axis, an 8, -13. So in other words, right there, perpendicular, right? So what's a good adjective for that line? The other one was horizontal, this one. What's the slope on that one? Undefined. Okay. So y minus a -13 equals undefined. That's always something really nice to put into a formula. X minus 8. Do you agree with that? If we had to use the formula, that's what we'd have to write. Do you agree with that? Any disagreements with that's how we would have to substitute it? No. I'm going to show you how it gets to the answer. So this is y plus 13. Why is it undefined? It's divided by 0. So do you agree that this slope could be written as some number over 0, right? That could be written that way? Now, do you agree that this right side is saying divide by 0? There's only one thing that'll cancel out dividing by 0. That's the multiply by 0. So if I multiply this side by 0, it cancels that out, agreed? But if I multiply this side by 0, and 0 times this is, so 0 equals x minus 8. 8, x equals 8. And most of you know that right away from having other classes that this one's going to be x equals a number. Yeah, isn't that a lot quicker than doing this? It is, but the formula still works. So there are none that it will not work. It's just some of them are going to be more complicated. So I really hope in these last two here, y equals a number, x equals a number, and let's face it, x equals 8 because it was vertical. Please do it that way. A lot less time on the special ones. Okay. Questions?